insurance woes in Northeast Calgary, autonomous vehicles blurring the line between different types of liability insurance, a rural town in Manitoba dodges a financial bullet thanks to their insurance policy, and what's this channel all about anyways? Today on Insurance in Canada. Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Insurance in Canada. My name is Ritchot, so glad you can join me. So a little bit about me. I am an insurance broker in the Greater Toronto area of Ontario, Canada. I first got my license back in 1992, and except for a 9-year stint in the Navy, I have been an insurance broker both in Ontario and British Columbia all this time. I'm also an instructor for the Insurance Institute of Canada. For those of you who are not familiar, there is a professional designation you can obtain in insurance called the Chartered Insurance Professional. That program is done by the Insurance Institute of Canada. In order to obtain that designation, you have to pass a number of courses, and I teach one of the courses, Insurance on Property. Before that, I was teaching automobile insurance for about 10 years before that, so I've been with the Institute for quite a while. Broker, I do both personal lines and commercial lines, focus mostly on the personal line side, so the homeowners, condo, automobile, tenant type policies. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Why this channel? Insurance is a huge living, breathing organism that is always changing, and I didn't find any channel on that really addressed those topics because if you don't really keep up to date with what's going on in insurance, you can really lose track of what's going on. And it's also good to keep an eye on what's going on in the other provinces and territories. If you're in the industry or if you're not, keeping an eye on what's going on in the other provinces, territories could give you a heads up when that sort of change, that sort of program that that particular jurisdiction is undergoing, that suddenly shows up in your province, you're aware of that as well. So that is my reasoning for starting this channel. Hopefully you find the topic of interest to you, even if you're not in the insurance industry. Insurance is something that is an aspect of pretty much everybody's life to some degree or another. So being able to understand the various types of insurance, being able to understand how it's regulated, managed, what sort of coverages it provides. So hopefully you'll find some sort of benefit here on this channel. So hopefully you'll join me on this journey of education. My specialty is property and casualty type of insurance. But I'll also look at different aspects of insurance, the accident sickness side as well. I'll try and educate myself as best possible to inform you as to what is going on in that particular topic. My main goal is to take a look at news stories that involve insurance in some way in Canada. Obviously, I'm in Ontario, so maybe some of my stories might be more numerous for Ontario, but like I said, I'll try and incorporate other provinces and territories as well. So without further ado, let's take a look at our first episode of Insurance in the News. So when I start searching for news articles, I use both the traditional media as well as specialized sources from the insurance industry that report on these stories. Most of these stories will be impacting the insurance industry directly. Some of these stories we'll look at are not from Canada specifically, but deal with topics that we would have to be considerate of here in Canada. And like I said, all these stories impact the insurance industry in some way, either directly or indirectly. So our first story comes from Northeast Calgary and the issue that homeowners are experiencing there when it comes to obtaining insurance or affordable insurance after all the weather events they've had there over the last few years, especially August of 2024, when there was a very large hailstorm that impacted the Calgary area. It was one of the most expensive in terms of costliest for claims, weather episodes or claim episodes in Canadian history. The 2016 Fort McMurray wildfires was the most costliest when it comes to claims. But if you take a look at the amount of damage that occurred from the hailstorm, you can almost make it number one, considering the wildfires in Fort McMurray occurred over several days. But the hailstorm, from what I understand, lasted less than an hour and caused about $2.8 billion in damage, which is quite amazing. It's said that 1 in 5 homes in Calgary were impacted by the hailstorm in some way. And because of that, there is the pushback from the insurance industry when a particular area experiences a weather phenomenon that causes these types of claims on a regular basis. Here in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, even going into the certain areas in the Niagara region, we don't experience many hailstorms, and definitely nothing what the Calgarians had to deal with last year. So let's take a look at the article. This is from Jonathan Cueto. Homeowners in Northeast Calgary are grappling with a burgeoning crisis as home insurance premiums soar, deductibles climb, and policies face outright cancellation. The situation, described by some residents as feeling like a second mortgage, is leaving many families vulnerable as another hail season approaches in what is often dubbed Hail Alley. According to Livewire, Calgary residents in postal codes like T3J and T3N are experiencing massive insurance premium increases. Harlan Carr, a homeowner with 2 properties in the area, reported her monthly premiums jumping from $180 and $160 to $580 after filing a $45,000 hail damage claim in August 2024. More than 15 providers reportedly rejected her applications or quoted her up to $21,000 per home because of the number of claims they had in the Northeast last year. They are declining any policies with a T3J, T3N postal codes. So it's unfortunate, but it's not too surprising for those in the industry to see this kind of reaction from the insurance industry. You'll normally find when it comes to coverage, especially for large weather events, for instance, flood coverage, those properties that are in dire need of that type of coverage would be the ones that be the most difficult to find that coverage for, just because they're in a situation that would cause greater than average claims than you would for other areas. So you've seen this. I've seen this here in Ontario. Like I said, when it comes to flood coverage for certain areas, especially those areas that are within a certain range, usually about 300 meters of a lake or river, they would find it very difficult to find flood coverage or overland water coverage, as it's known. So to see this when it comes to hail coverage in Northeast Calgary, I'm not surprised. It's, like I said, it is unfortunate, but you see it in other areas as well. For instance, windstorm coverage in Florida is very difficult and very expensive. Same thing would be for just basic fire coverage in areas of California because of the wildfires there. Windstorms in Florida, fires in California, that's not something that's uncommon. That's something that happens, I'm not going to say on a regular basis, but it's almost predictable to a degree. Therefore, insurance companies are very hesitant to offer any sort of coverage in those areas, and have known in both of those states, for instance, to pull out of the market completely or cancel policies for those particular areas as well. So to see this, it's, like I said, nothing that's too surprising. There's not, the problem is when it comes to hail, there's not a whole lot one can do to try and prevent that kind of damage from occurring. If you have an issue in your neighborhood with the sewers backing up, there's steps that the municipality can try and take to prevent that further sewer backup events from occurring, but there's not much you can do to try and prevent hailstorms from occurring. That's Mother Nature, and Mother Nature will do what she wants to do. There's only so much one can do as well to try and prevent damage to your home from hail as well. Hail is one of those natural disasters, natural weather phenomenon that is pretty much near impossible unless you want to take very extreme measures to try and prevent damage to your property from hailstorms just because of the physics of it. Continuing on with the article, online community groups for neighborhoods such as Redstone and Skyview Ranch are abuzz with warnings of $10,000 hail deductibles and premium increase of up to 1/3 in a single year. One individual reportedly had to sell their home due to their inabilities to secure affordable insurance. And that is something, for instance, you've seen in Florida because of the hurricanes, the two hurricanes that came back to back last year in Florida, that many people there have kind of had enough and are trying to sell their properties. A large number of people, especially on the Gulf Coast, trying to sell their property just because they've had enough. Of course, the problem is most of the properties there are still damaged, so trying to sell is going to be difficult. I imagine the same thing would be with Calgary as well, in that particular area of Northeast Calgary, trying to sell your house in a situation where it's going to be difficult to obtain insurance. That would make it pretty difficult to try and sell as well. Continuing on, the Insurance Bureau of Canada attributes the tightening market to repeated hailstorms, which have rendered this part of Calgary a high-risk zone for insurers. Hail-related claims in Calgary have exceeded $5 billion over the last 3 years, with the August 2024 storm alone marking the country's most expensive weather event of that year. Aaron Sutherland, Vice President of the IBC, indicated that insurance companies are under pressure to reduce their risk exposure. Some carriers may be looking to reduce their coverage options or change their coverage options. The intensification and increased frequency of extreme weather events linked to the climate crisis and burning of direct energy sources are exacerbating these challenges, leading insurers to reduce or drop coverage in high-risk area. So that is the issue that is, like I said, in Northeast Calgary. There are other areas of the country that experience insurance difficulties when it comes to other types of coverage, just because of the different climatology, different experiences with different types. For instance, on the East Coast and the Maritime provinces, I know there's been talk of issues trying to obtain insurance for windstorm because of hurricanes passing through that area, flood coverage in Quebec. So yeah, unfortunately, like I said, for those areas that are experiencing on a regular basis those types of phenomenon, it is difficult to try and obtain that type of insurance. Basically, at this point, it's going to be up to the stakeholders in Alberta, the government, the insurance industry, consumer groups to try and get together to try and figure out some sort of solutions. So next up, this is an article. It's about autonomous vehicles in the United States and the implications of the insurance situation. A report put out by Goldman Sachs. Like I said, this is from talking about the United States, but this is something that will eventually make its way up here in Canada because autonomous vehicles are on the horizon. They're being utilized way more in the States than they are here in Canada, just because of the climate here in Canada makes it a bit challenged to try and test autonomous vehicles. So it's something you see more often in the States. I know there is test project here in Ontario to allow certain autonomous vehicles to test pilot here in Ontario. I'm not sure if that program is still going on, but let's take a look at this article by Georgie McKay. The rise of autonomous vehicles will force a reconfiguration of the $400 billion U.S. auto insurance industry as accidents caused by human error decrease and costs are slashed. But questions about liability remain. According to Goldman Sachs, autonomy has the potential of significantly reduce accident frequency longer term and reshape the underlying claim cost distribution and legal liability for accidents, Goldman Sachs analysts, including Mark Delaney, wrote in a June 9th note to clients. The autonomous vehicle market is growing fast and projected to reach $7 billion in 2030, and the potential market for autonomous virtual drivers for Class A truck in the U.S. will be around $5 billion by the same year. Tesla Inc.'s long-awaited robotaxi service is set to launch this week in its hometown of Austin, Texas, which has become a focal point for the growing robotaxi industry, with companies such as Alphabet Inc.'s Waymo already operating there. So, and the utilizing of the robotaxis in Austin makes sense just because you don't see many snowstorms in Austin, so snow is a bit of a issue still for autonomous vehicles. Now, keep in mind, there are different levels of autonomous vehicles. Currently, autonomy, there's 6 classes of autonomy: class 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Class 0 means a vehicle has no autonomous features whatsoever. Class 1 to 4, the vehicle has some ability to operate on its own. Depending on the involvement of the driver determines whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Class 5 is kind of like the holy grail of autonomous vehicles, where not only is the driver not inputting anything into the vehicle, it's all the vehicle that has control over the functions of driving. There's no way for the driver to even operate the vehicle at that point. Class 4, from what I know, the vehicle is still self-driving, but there's still a steering wheel in the vehicle. So it's possible for somebody to actually take over the driving operations of the vehicle. But the class 5, no, there is no way for anybody to actually manually control the vehicle. It's all the vehicle. We are not, as far as I know, we are not at class 5 at this point. Even the Waymo taxis that are used in the United States, they all still have steering wheels. They still look like a regular vehicle to a degree. There's no class 5 at this point. I don't think even with Tesla's robotaxi service, it's believe the vehicles still have the ability to be driven by somebody. So we don't, as far as I know, we don't have anything like that here in Canada. But I imagine eventually somebody is going to want to undertake this, at least on a trial basis, probably in one of the major cities, Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, to see if it is a viable option. The issue when it comes to autonomous vehicles, we see further down, the big question, however, is liability, which is at the heart of the U.S. automobile insurance system. Currently, the person driving a vehicle is responsible for any injuries or property damage caused by their driving, but that calculation becomes far trickier when the vehicle is being driven by a computer and the person is just a passenger. Who's responsible and who's going to pay? The underlying protection needed for autonomous vehicles could shift the insurance pool towards product liability and cyber coverage, a different underlying risk profile than what auto insurers cover today. Therefore, incumbent auto insurers may need to invest in talent and capabilities to profitability underwrite a new set of underlying risk. So that's where the conflict between the two types of liability insurance that I was mentioning in the intro would arise from. At what point does it become, when there's an accident involving a autonomous vehicle, is it under the automobile insurance liability, and when does it become the responsibility of the manufacturer? It would depend much on the circumstances of the accident and the type of autonomous vehicles we are looking at. But that is the big question in the insurance industry when we look at autonomous vehicles. Because normally when it comes to automobile insurance liability, the liability falls to both the driver and the owner of the vehicle, depending on what the situation is. It could be equally shared between the liable vehicle, between the driver and the owner. But when we're looking at the autonomous vehicle, if the driver is not the one who's in control of the vehicle, even though there may be a legal requirement for the driver to be available to take over, I'm sure there's going to be some situations where the autonomous vehicle wants to transfer control back to the driver, and the driver is just not prepared at that point to deal with the situation. It might be a situation where it's too little too late, but the vehicle owner is still going to have to bear responsibility as the owner of the vehicle, which is why you should always be careful when you lend your vehicle out to people. But where does the situation where if it's the error in the vehicle software, vehicle design, that's what really caused the accident. Now we look back to the auto manufacturer to take on the responsibility, the burden of dealing with the injuries, damages suffered by the third party. So it could become an interesting situation where automobile insurance becomes more affordable as the claim burden is relieved on the automobile policy, but now the product liability costs premiums start to soar because now that's the policy that's taking over responsibility, and obviously those costs have to be passed back on to the consumer. The auto manufacturers are not going to just absorb those kind of costs onto themselves. So like I said, this is the interesting conundrum when it comes to insuring. One of the interesting conundrums when it comes to insuring autonomous vehicles. For us in Canada, we still have time for the industry and the regulators to come together and really take a look to see how we are going to address this situation, whether we will just keep the policies, the automobile policy, product liability as they are, and have each policy deal with every claim situation on its own, or whether some sort of hybrid policy would be created that combines automobile liability and product liability into one, that the owner of the vehicle is going to maybe be the one to have to absorb the cost of, or maybe there's some sort of offering where both the vehicle owner and the manufacturer will both have to take part in the cost of that type of policies. So if I see any other further developments when it comes to this, or if I see something being developed down in the States, because obviously since this is something that's happening down there, this is something that they really need to start to address. So if I see anything that goes to that, because it's going to be, like I said, for many people, this is an interesting topic. I'll let you folks know. And our last news story for today deals with a rural municipality in Manitoba. I believe it's called Ritchot. It's just south of Winnipeg and deals with a cybersecurity incident that the regional municipality had to face. This is from Brenda Sawatsky. Ritchot's council met for their bi-monthly public meeting on June 3rd to discuss a brief list of items on their agenda. Included was a report by CAO Shane Ray on costs incurred by the regional municipality, the RM, in recent weeks. One of them referred to a $127,000 check ready to be issued to a company for their work on a cyber breach at the regional municipality office last year. This is one of the companies that has been working on the cyber incident. It's important to note that this will be covered through insurance. We are paying that upfront, and then we'll be reimbursed by insurance once we finish things up with them. The cyber breach was originally discovered by RM staff on December 15th. That'd be 2024, I believe. 6 months later, little information has been forthcoming from the municipal office regarding the nature or severity of the breach. Inquiries from the citizen resulted in a single response from the mayor indicating that council was not allowed to discuss details of the data breach. On June 4th, residents received notification that the RM system was now back up and running, allowing for municipality once again issue tax and utility bills. So cyber incidents are becoming more and more of a concern, not only to government, both federal, municipal, provincial governments, but to industry, various types of industry businesses as well. Cybersecurity incidents, wide-ranging. The most concerning for most of the parties involved is situation cyber extortion, where a computer system is locked up due to malware being installed either accidentally or by a hacker into somebody's system, and the system is locked until a ransom is paid, at which time the key is given to the victim and the system can now be accessed. So there is a cyber risk insurance policy that exists either as part of a commercial policy or on a standalone basis that businesses really must take a look at seriously, especially if your business really is involved quite heavily online. Yes, there's a lot of small businesses that don't have a large online footprint. There's still businesses out there that still operate manually, so all they have is an email address and that's about it. So, your exposure will vary depending on what your type of operation is, but this is becoming a must-have type of coverage for businesses to really undertake, because you never know when a situation will occur because one of your employees was careless in clicking on a link that was sent to them. Yes, many industries, many corporations make education a normal part of their process, part of their routine, having the employees undergoing cyber incident training so they're aware of it. However, we're all human, we make mistakes. Sometimes we're too busy to really analyze a situation to recognize when we're in that situation where we shouldn't be clicking on something that we shouldn't be. So that's one of the major ways that hackers try and access these systems to install their malware. And the cyber risk insurance policy has both the aspects of covering your exposure. So if your system is hacked, if it is locked, that's cyber risk insurance, depending on what the wording is. So make sure whoever you're using, your agent, broker, or doing it yourself, reads the wordings to make sure that that type of insurance will cover the ransom that is being demanded by the hackers to access your system. But there's other things that the cyber risk policy can provide, such as expertise, as hiring people as expertise to actually run the situation involving your system, dealing with the hackers. So it's a very robust type of policy, robust type of coverage that, the vast majority of people are just not prepared to deal with on their own. So this is something that that's another benefit to that type of policy. Dealing with the hackers, paying the ransom, freeing up your system and make sure it is actually cleaned out so this doesn't happen again from the same source. That's businesses. There's also cyber insurance to deal with on the personal side as well. So we all deal with computers, and those computers are just as liable to be hacked as well. So cyber insurance is something many insurance companies now offer as part of the habitational policy. A habitational policy is a homeowners, tenants, condo unit owners policy. Not every insurance company offers cyber risk for your habitational policy. But if your company does offer it, the limits can be not as robust as it would be for a commercial policy, just because commercial entities have a much higher risk than than most individuals. But there are standalone policy options as well if what's being offered on your habitational policy is not what you feel that's what you're requiring. So the regional municipality of Ritchot is definitely glad that they have their coverage for their policy, or else they'd be out that $127,000. That's just for the company that was spearheading the situation with the cyber incident. That's not even taking into account probably what the actual ransom is. So yeah, that's a situation we're not even seeing the entire cost of what is actually the actual cost when we're factoring in any extortion amounts that have to be paid out. Just carrying out the article, the Arms Emergency Response Coordinator Harold Schlamp attended the virtual meeting to provide an update on his continued work with the municipality. A municipal emergency plan was reviewed and endorsed by council by way of resolution. While natural disasters have been an issue for residents of Ritchot yet this year, Schlamp's role in actively ready the municipality for unexpected changes. So yeah, getting on to normal life in Winnipeg when it comes to flooding and whatnot. So, but just an example, just to show you that cyber incidents are real, are a threat, and something that if you're a business owner, your organization really needs to take a look at and review not only your policies to avoid cyber incidents, but your insurance as well to deal with these incidents should something happen. And with that, that is my first episode. Feel free to leave your comments down in the comments section. This is a ongoing learning process for myself. I've never run a YouTube channel before, so this may seem a little amateurish, but I'm learning all these steps about recording and editing and all that. So hopefully as I learn more, my videos will be a little more sophisticated. But as I said, feel free to leave a comment, things I can do to improve. If anything I've talked about today, if I made any factual errors or anything you'd like to correct, please feel free. I'm not perfect and always willing to learn. Beyond that, please leave a like if you like what I'm doing here. Subscribe for more videos in the future. And until then, I will see you next time on Insurance in Canada. Bye-bye.